Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video we're going to be going over some more TTS gameplay against my testing partner. I'm going to be on Ruby Sapphire. My deck list will be linked in the description. My friend here is on a very interesting Steel FASA list, or Amber Steel MUFASA. There's a couple different variations of Amber Steel that you can build to be very competitive, so it's going to be interesting to see how he put this one together. Now, at the time of us going into this match, we did not know what decks we each selected here, so we're both going in blind, going in on the mulligan blind. I am going to be on the draw for this one. My friend starts off with a Steel Simba, which goes very well into this Amber Steel deck because obviously you can unbrick your hand. As you see, he discards an uninkable there, and that Amber Tinkerbell is a shift target for the Steel Tinkerbell. It's just one less ink efficient than the new Amethyst one that came out in Azurite. But the reason that this Simba is very good is because it can also be discarded for the Lilo, the new Amber Super Rare, that it will allow itself to be recurred from the discard pile later on in the game. So he starts off with Simba and a Daisy Duck on 2, so no 2 drop, but still a card to play in the 1-drop Daisy. We don't have a 1-drop, so no item, so we're just going to try to claw back some advantage by getting ahead on ink to even up that tempo, but my opponent does have the aggressive board state going, and being an Amber Steel deck, they're going to aim to just continually develop threats. We are Ruby Sapphire, so our game plan is develop control. Here you can see on the Daisy deck quest, nice additions to tabletop, by the way, automatically triggering the Daisy Duck there, getting a Hiram off of it. And, you know, Daisy Duck to me, like, it's a strong card, but I think in order for it to really be used effectively, it needs to be in a hyper aggro deck. Otherwise, like, I think the advantage that it gives your opponent is just too detrimental, especially with there being more character focused decks and less control decks in this format, but we can discuss that in a different video. So here we're going to be able to drop the Popsicle. Our hand is fairly decent to play out. Again, I have to be a little wary of this dock being able to drop a threat one turn earlier. So I'm going to ink one of the 2 Mauis here and play a Visions to dig 5 deep, knowing that I'm going to have to reset the board state at some point, so that's what the Be Prepareds are for. So we're going to go ahead and take that, put the rest of the bottom. Honestly, I don't even remember what the other cards were. I just knew that, yeah, I'm digging for a board wipe, basically. Now, to be fair, a big Sisu, which we did ink with the Tipo, would also do it in this case, but being on Steel, I do expect that they're on some heavier cards. Speaking of which, here's one that comes down 1 turn early in the GANTU. Now, we do get a Sisu off of the Daisy quest here, but my opponent is now up to 9, and this GANTU is going to threaten putting them to 16 if I don't answer their board. So we're in a little bit of trouble here. And to be fair, the list that I have linked in the description is not going to be the list that you see me test here, because as I reviewed with the Cross-Continental Challenge, the 2 Ruby Sapphire players in there have quite correctly, in my opinion, dropped the Fishbone Quill. And honestly, like, when you see the way that the deck curves out now with both Tipo and Azurite, they're just more efficient cards than Fishbone. And you're not really playing Fishbone for the long game like you do in Sapphire Steel, where you're just inking every turn in order to wheel. Here you see me ended up playing it, but is it really going to do that much? You don't really want to continue to empty your hand. I've already ramped twice. Like, getting the extra ramp here doesn't do anything really, in my opinion. It just makes me lose card advantage. So, like, you can even argue I shouldn't even be using it here. It is an item for Hiram, but an inefficient one, right, at 3 costs. So I think that the deck has definitely evolved now to just using very efficient 1-card ramp like Tipo, like Azurite, now that we have that, and even How Far I'll Go I think is better than Fishbone, despite it being uninkable and not being an item, because if you build Ruby Sapphire with the Shark now, the How Far I'll Go is also an item that is recurable. So my opponent, wants to play around the shift, Sisu, which would clear their board, right? Because I'd take out all their 2 strength and less characters, and I'd crash my Sisu into their GANTU. The GANTU is a 4/3 body, so it is tough to out. I would need double ice block on board in order to get it down to 2 strength in order for it to be cleared by the big Sisu. We draw a Hiram for turn here. I'm going to quest with the Tipo. Again, nice little additions to tabletop with giving us a couple of icons so that we can automatically trigger the quest and the lore gain instead of having to manually do it. So we quest, and then we Be Prepared, and then I Fishbone the Hiram. So again, no real use out of the Fishbone there. Just I could have inked the Hiram for turn normally. Yes, it's nice to ink on inkables, but I just think it's not really worth it. Now my opponent follows up with the Smee, and they have almost no cards in hand. To be fair, neither do we really. So I have a couple of choices to make. Going for Shark here doesn't really make too much sense because I really can only get back a Be Prepared, which would clear my board as well, and I've already stabilized. My opponent is almost at game, being on 16 lore. You know, they were on the play, they were the aggressor. So I just need to make sure that I have constant answers for what they drop. Now, being on Amber Steel mid-range means that they're likely on Mufasas, and I know my friend is. Now they are playing some songs, which I do think you don't necessarily have to go full 60 characters with Mufasa. I do think playing some of the more powerful steel songs, like you saw him play "Let the Storm Rage On," is definitely viable, and I actually prefer it that way. I even called out running Be Prepared in Amber, Ruby, Mufasa. Be Prepared is just it's the card that gets you back into a game, gets you a reset, versus being on the draw when your opponent is just dictating the pace of the game, right? That's why Ruby Amethyst has been so strong for so long, right? So having additional utility over characters is still very important, but it can also backfire. So here my opponent knows that that they're very close to game, so they quest with the Smee going to 18. They ink the Simba Fighting Prince since they do not have enough ink to play it, and then they're deliberating if they should drop what ends up being a Rapunzel. Should they save it for healing? But if you look at the game state, like nothing that they have is really going to survive for them to heal or be able to crash, because nothing they plays rush. So they're like, I have to just play the Rapunzel and hope that I can quest for game next turn. Now we do have the Maleficent for it. The issue is if we use this Maleficent now, we won't be able to Maleficent what comes through next. So we're going to play out the correct sequence here in order to make sure that we maximize our chances of playing as efficiently as possible. So we play Popsicle first, draw a card, it's a Fishbone. Okay, that's kind of useless. Quest with the Hiram, gain a lore, draw 2. And some of my cards on my Inkwell like doubled up on each other, so I have to like clear out my ink a little bit more, keep it more organized. Of course, we're going to use the Maui to take out the Smee, and we end up drawing into a small Sisu, which is a much more efficient way to take out the Rapunzel. What I do have to be afraid of is Mufasa coming in on those previous turns, because if I would have been able to take out the Mufasa, whatever the Mufasa triggered, I'd have to also take out. Now it does come in exerted, but unless I had a Maui available, which I had to use the Maui for the Smee there, I would probably still lose the game. So now I'm in a better spot, because if they top deck a Mufasa and play it, I can Maleficent Dragon it, and then whatever Mufasa brings in on the exert will be able to be taken out by Maui, buying me an extra turn here. They draw and they pass, and they when they drew, they said like something like, I can't believe I just drew that. And I'm like, oh, you drew one of your songs, didn't you? Like a Strength or a Storm. Now, if it was a Storm, they would have probably played it on the Maui, to be fair. But so it's very likely that it was a Strength. So we're going to continue to quest with the Hiram, get our card advantage up, and now we have the Tamatoa in rotation, so we're going to be able to close this game out quite quickly. Tamatoa comes down, and we are going to grab back a Popsicle, of course, and we also have the Lucky Dime in hand, which is great as well. So play the Popsicle, draw a card, and then I think I probably ink this Tipo, and then just play out 2 more items, because I'm just trying to develop enough items on board to dime the quest and dime the Tamatoa for next turn. There you see me move my ink around, and then some of the cards get like stacked on top of each other, so I end up getting confused, which could have cost me the game, because you'll see that when we try to push for game with the dime, like we might have been short on ink to do all of our interactions, but thankfully we were able to catch what we need to here. So the opponent top decks the Simba, which is really strong, and he's going to opt to take out my Sisu with it. He could take out the Maui, but that doesn't really do anything, right? I mean, the Maui's going to be, I don't know. Would the Maui be the correct thing to try to take out there? I guess he's still fearful of the Sisu shift, which is also just representing an instant quest for 3, right? Not just its removal, which in this case obviously wouldn't do anything, since Simba is a 5/7, I believe. But yeah, here I spend a little bit of time trying to calculate, and this is where I get confused, because I'm like, wait a minute, I should have more ink, and there you can see me like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like my cards are stacked upon each other. So like I'm like, okay, let me just do this math again. I think I should have game. And even if I don't have game, I have the Maleficent, right? So I could just Maleficent the Simba, quest with the Tamatoa, build up my items again, and then just dime again next turn. So either way, I should have game, since there's no way for Amber Steel to instantaneously gain lore, basically. I mean, there might be like some weird ways, but not anything standard. And this is why in my videos I've talked so much about like why Amethyst has been so strong, why Emerald getting Go-Go Tamago has been like a game changer for that color, giving like Emerald Steel an alternative win condition to just, hey, I need something on board to quest for game. If you can keep them off board presence, they could be at 19 lore. If they can't get something to stick to quest, they can't win the game. Now they can with Go-Go, right? So that's kind of scary. But yeah, we have exact game here, because we quest with Tamatoa for 6, going from 6 to 12. bring back a Popsicle, play Popsicle, dime the Tamatoa for 7 now because we have the additional item that we brought back off of the Tamatoa, and that brings me to 19. Then I just quest with the Hiram for game going up to 20. So we were able to take that one, even though we were on the draw. My friend, I think, was mentioning where was his Mufasas. There's the Lilo. That's the card you ideally want to see early, because here you can see once they're kind of out of resources, that Lilo recurring itself can be very useful. There's the couple of Tinkerbells, then you Simba, and there is the Mufasa 2 deep into the deck. I do owe him a second game. I did have to run after this match, so if you're interested in seeing that, let me know in the comment section below. And before I wrap it up, if you made it this far in the video, thank you, but just note that I guess I'll start putting it in the link in the description where you can join my Discord, and anytime I have some free time, if you want to jump into a match, I'll post it in that Discord. If you're available to play some tabletop, we can get a match in and you can be featured in a video. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Again, if you made it this far, thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.